All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're getting to know one of the most brilliant and revolutionary writers of the 20th century, the one and only Virginia Woolf. We're going to trace her incredible journey, from the dark shadows of a really tough childhood all the way to the absolute forefront of modern literature.
And this quote, it's the perfect place to start. It just nails the essence of who she was, her fierce, unstoppable intellect that simply refused to be caged, not by personal tragedy and not by the rules of her time. So, to really get a handle on her genius, we first have to understand the world that made her. And it was a world of these wild contrasts, the deep, dark shadows of her early life and the bright intellectual sanctuaries she would go on to build for herself. Virginia Stephen was basically born into Victorian intellectual royalty. I mean, her dad, Leslie Stephen, was this famous historian and critic, and her mom, Julia, was a celebrated beauty. Their home was this constant hub for artists and thinkers, but behind all that intellectual glitter was a private world of some pretty profound and lasting pain. The losses, they just came so relentlessly and so fast. Her mother died when she was only 13, her half-sister 2 years after that, and then her father. This complete cascade of grief is what triggered her first severe mental breakdown, a struggle that would, unfortunately, follow her for the rest of her life. And compounding all of that grief was another unspeakable trauma. She and her sister Vanessa were sexually abused by their half-brothers. This left these deep, invisible wounds that she would wrestle with, both in her writing and in her recurring battles with her own mind.
Okay, so this slide, right here, captures a huge turning point. After her father died in 1904, the siblings moved from the stuffy, oppressive vibe of Hyde Park Gate to Gordon Square in Bloomsbury. It was a physical move, sure, but it symbolized something so much bigger. A move from repression to liberation, from family trauma to the kind of intellectual freedom that would change absolutely everything.
And this new home, it became the crucible for the now legendary Bloomsbury Group. I mean, can you just imagine the conversations? This circle of writers, artists, and thinkers, including people like the economist John Maynard Keynes and the novelist E.M. Forster, they all gathered to basically challenge every single Victorian idea about life, art, and society. And this newfound intellectual freedom wasn't just for late-night chats and arguments. Nope. It became the very foundation for her revolutionary literary career. She was about to invent a completely new way to tell stories.
Her key innovation was a technique that would change fiction forever: stream of consciousness. Now, this wasn't just some clever literary trick. Think of it like this. Instead of a narrator telling you what's happening from the outside, she just drops you right inside a character's head. You get the chaotic, unfiltered flow of their thoughts, their feelings, their memories as they're happening. She was literally mapping the internal world.
A perfect example of this is Mrs. Dalloway. The entire novel unfolds over a single day, one day, and yet, by diving deep into the consciousness of its characters, Woolf reveals entire lifetimes of memory, regret, and connection. It proved that a novel's real drama could be found not in big events, but in the quiet universe of the mind. And then there's To the Lighthouse, which is this profound meditation on time and art and loss. There's this one astonishing middle section, it's called Time Passes, where an entire decade, including the whole of World War I, just rushes by in 20 pages. It is absolutely breathtaking stuff. Woolf also had this wonderfully playful, fantastical side. Orlando is just this dazzling, epic love letter to the writer Vita Sackville West. It's also this groundbreaking exploration of identity that was literally centuries ahead of its time. And maybe her most experimental work is The Waves. It's almost less of a novel and more of a prose poem. It's told through the inner monologues of 6 different characters, from the time they're children until they're old. You can just see how she was constantly pushing the boundaries of what a novel could even be.
But Woolf wasn't just a literary game-changer. She was a fierce advocate for women. Her nonfiction work really laid the groundwork for modern feminism, arguing for the essential things a woman needs to actually be creative. In her landmark essay, A Room of One's Own, she made this declaration that for its time was absolutely revolutionary. She argued that creativity wasn't just about talent, it was about circumstance. A woman needed money and a room of her own, financial independence and physical space, or her potential would just be snuffed out.
And to really hammer this point home, she created the fictional character of Judith Shakespeare. She said, okay, what if William Shakespeare had an equally talented sister? Woolf then traces her tragic fate, denied an education, denied any real agency, showing how it was societal structures, not a lack of talent, that had kept women from achieving greatness. Now, what's so crucial is that Woolf didn't just write about this freedom, she built it for herself. With her husband Leonard, she founded the Hogarth Press. It started with a little hand press in their dining room, and it became her ultimate room of her own. It was a business that gave her total creative control and the financial independence to publish her own radical work without having to compromise for anyone.
And this brings us to the final and really tragic chapter of her life. Because despite all her incredible success, the shadows of her past and the growing darkness of the world around her began to close in.
The political climate of the 1930s absolutely terrified her. You had the rise of fascism, you had the air raid sirens over London, the constant threat of a Nazi invasion, which was especially terrifying for her husband Leonard, who was Jewish. It was all just overwhelming, and it pushed her into another deep depression.
On March 28, 1941, feeling she was going mad again and just couldn't fight it any longer, Virginia Woolf walked into the River Ouse. Her final note to Leonard is it's heartbreakingly clear, but it's also this beautiful testament to the love and stability that he had given her throughout their lives.
So what is her legacy? Well, it's monumental, but you can really boil it down to 3 key things. First, she took us inside the human mind like no one before her. Second, she completely shattered the traditional form of the novel. And third, she gave women a powerful voice, explaining the systemic reasons they had been silenced for centuries.
And you know, even at the very end, her genius was just burning bright. Her last novel, which was published after she died, perfectly captures the fragmented, anxious mood of a country on the verge of war. It just proves her mind was sharp and perceptive right up until the last moment. Ultimately, Virginia Woolf's greatest gift was to show us that the inner life of any person on any given day contains a universe of drama, beauty, and meaning. It's a really powerful idea, and it leaves us with a question, right? If an ordinary mind on an ordinary day can be epic, how does that change the way you see your own day, your own thoughts, and the world around you?